Hello everyone, Eric here, and I know moving your classes online is a trying and difficult experience. One of the things you might be grappling with is how are you going to make sure your online students aren't cheating or plagiarizing? That is certainly a concern in our face-to-face classes, but you're moving into this new realm. You can't see your students take their exams. You just may feel like you're at a distance from them. And so I wanted to address how you might think about designing the new online class that you're going to be teaching for the rest of the semester to help minimize the chances of plagiarism and dishonesty, and what you can do on exams and homework and quizzes and essays to minimize or even possibly eliminate the worry about cheating and academic dishonesty in general. So I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. It's really hard for me. I'm missing everybody. I can't talk to my friends, but I'm going to try to keep this 20 minutes or so. Please feel free to follow up with me if you've got questions or concerns. Contact your instructional coach at your campus, your department chair, your lead faculty, or someone. So if this is something you're struggling with, reach out and talk to someone about it. So yes, we care about cheating. We don't want cheating for lots of reasons. One of them is it undermines the integrity of our programs. That is still important, even though we're moving to this new modality of teaching. We also think cheating's bad. We don't want cheaters in society. And so we want to teach students that honesty is the right thing to do. You may think cheating is morally wrong, and you're going to take it personally because we often feel like students are cheating as a way to get back at us. And so I am just acknowledging that I know you care about cheating, and so do I. I will let you know that in my research over the last 10 years, there is little or no evidence that online students cheat more than face-to-face students. And so I would not add a significant burden to your thinking. It just isn't the case that there is any evidence that I could find that shows online students are vastly or even significantly more likely to cheat. In fact, I didn't find any evidence at all that online students are more likely to cheat at all. Having said that, cheating is pretty rampant in college and high school to begin with, and so it is probably happening online as well. There is nothing we can do to prevent cheating completely. You know this from teaching face-to-face classes. But we can tweak our assignments, our quizzes, our homework, our exams, our papers to make cheating less likely. And we can also do things just in general with our course that might make cheating less likely. I'm going to talk about some of those things. So in my research, and I have done quite a bit of research on this, there are some factors that promote dishonesty in students. I didn't find any particular demographic factors that are relevant to our students, and plus demographics don't tell us anything about individual students, but some of the things that you might keep in the back of your head: what would motivate a student to cheat? Extrinsic motivation. When they view you, the teacher, as incompetent or uncaring, there's research that shows students are more likely to cheat, which I find very fascinating. The better a student is and able to rationalize the need for cheating, the more likely she is to cheat. That probably correlates with students that are smart and good rationalizers and good critical thinkers because they're able to come up with more reasons. High stakes assessments and performance focused assessments are correlated with cheating, and it's probably not a surprise. If there is one exam in the class that's worth 50% of the grade, and that is their only chance to show you what they've learned, that's a high stakes environment. It may lead to more cheating. A similar situation, and maybe the flip side of that coin, is in classes where there is little or no formative assessment and students aren't getting feedback on their work as they're learning, they're more likely to cheat. And I'll talk about why. Probably has to do with their lack of self-efficacy. They don't know if they know. They don't know what's going to be on the exam. They're having trouble with metacognition, right? They don't know what they understand. They don't know if they're ready. And so they may feel like they need to cheat simply because they don't know if they actually know anything yet, and you can help them with that. It is clearly the case that students cheat more when they think they're not going to get caught. And in cases where cheating is an accepted norm or a common practice, it's more common. And so what can we do? We need to make it harder for students to cheat, and we need to make them think they're going to get caught. And so we want to make cheating and plagiarizing as difficult as possible. The problem is students are probably more motivated to cheat than we are to figure out how they're cheating. And if you haven't, you're locked down, take a little while and skim through YouTube. There are so many videos on YouTube about how to cheat. I'm just not interested in spending any of my time trying to keep up with the latest trends in cheating. I don't think I'll ever be as motivated as my students are. Um, and so I just don't want to get into this arms race. I want to figure out what can we just do on the front end to make students not bother looking at YouTube. When it comes to homework, the first thing is think about the goal. Why would a student cheat on homework? If they think it's busy work, if they don't see how it's connected to their learning, they may want to cheat. Is this for self-assessment? Is this part of the scaffolding to get a student ready for an upcoming summative assessment? If it's meaningful, is it practice for something? Then that's going to tell the student that they should work on it because it's part of learning. And so the more you can let students know that homework is a critical aspect of their learning, they will have some intrinsic motivation because learning stokes intrinsic motivation and they're less likely to cheat. Let students know what counts as cheating. Is it okay if they work together? Can they search the web? Can they use their books and notes? If you're using software for the first time, you're going to want to check it out and see what you can do with the software to lock down cheating. And ask for an honor pledge on homework. I'm going to talk more about that later. More or less, an honor pledge is just asking your student to literally type out, I didn't cheat. This work is my own. I didn't get help from anybody that was against the rules. That actual literal asking the student to tell you they didn't cheat is a significant factor in reducing cheating. I'll come back to that. I'm sure you're more interested in your exams than the homework. What can you do on exams? You're typically probably giving exams in class. You may actually ask students to go to the testing center in a normal situation. You may be teaching a subject that students could easily cheat if they have a calculator or a textbook or that sort of thing. And so what can you do in an online environment? You'll note I don't have proctoring on here. You may be thinking about that. I'm not going to talk about it. It is a possibility, but I don't think it's a best practice, especially in the situation we're in, because it just adds so many logistical hurdles to you and your student. I think there's so much we can do without going there. Number one, lower the pressure. I don't mean lower the rigor. I mean lower the high stakes performance anxiety students feel when there's an exam coming up. Make sure that they know what's going to be on that exam. Make sure you've given them plenty of time to practice the skills that they're going to need to know and that you've given them feedback on those skills to allow them to do a self-assessment and build their self-efficacy. There should be no surprises on your exam. I don't mean the literal questions. I mean students should know that they've practiced and they're ready for what they're going to see on the exam. Use open book exams. That is one of the simplest ways to keep students from cheating is if you simply take away what they could have cheated on. Can you rewrite your exam to focus less on recall of facts, less on vocabulary terms that they could look up, less on short answers that they could copy and transcribe right from a textbook? I'm sure you really care more about critical thinking, about analysis, about communication, about professionalism, about quantitative reasoning. And there are ways to rewrite problems to make them more attuned to those higher level Bloom skills and things that are simply less easy to cheat on. If you ask students to show their work, for instance, do narrated problem solving, give them the answer and have them tell you why it's right. And if you want help on how to do this, reach out to me or your instructional coach, and we can help you think about rewriting an exam to make it simply the kind of thing that students either won't want to cheat on or won't feel the need to cheat on, or you're going to allow them to use the resources that previously would have been cheating because you've changed the nature of the questions. Use a quiz bank in Desire to Learn. You can build multiple versions of your exam. If you're worried about cheating, you can simply add more questions. And that way, students aren't going to get the same exact exam. They may get multiple different versions of an exam. They may get question banks that give them, a section, 3 questions from section 1 and 4 questions from section 2. If you're worried about students cheating, that's one way to do it. Use the D2L tools in the quiz tool to set up quiz banks and design your quizzes that way. I can help you with that. People in the Instructional Design Center can help you with that. You can also set time limits in D2L. If you have an exam that you think will take students 60 minutes, set the timer for 70 minutes or 60 minutes. And again, a student who is needing to go to their book or having to call a friend will simply won't finish the exam. And so you can simply lock down the amount of time that they can take to complete the exam. Tell students that you don't want them to cheat and that you have designed the exam to help to stop them from cheating. That alone will go a long way because students will know you're looking. And you can ask for an honor pledge on exams as well. I'm going to take a brief detour and talk about essays. You probably don't want your students to plagiarize or misuse sources. I don't think the factors are much different in an online class, but since I'm here anyway, I am simply going to suggest that my advice to you, coach to faculty, friend to friend, is just make sure you're differentiating the misuse of sources from plagiarism. They're related but different, and at least my advice is to treat them differently. Misuse of sources or careless citations is not an attempt to cheat. That's when a student simply fails to use the proper MLA formatting or proper in-text citations. They're not actually doing the protocol properly, but they're not trying to fool you. They're just making mistakes in the way they're citing. That's a problem, and you may want to help a student work on that, but I don't think that's plagiarism. Plagiarism is where a student is literally trying to fool you into thinking that something someone else wrote is what she wrote. That's a bigger issue, and I think one that we can deal with. When it comes to misuse of sources, I'm going to say treat it like a teachable moment. Help students get better at citing. You can help students by working on a bibliography and that sort of thing. You can use an online discussion tool to do peer reviews. You can let students peer review their sources, their bibliographies, and that sort of thing. You can also simply ask students to use an online tool like the Online Writing Lab at Purdue. It's a great place to help students figure out citations and other things. And there are also tools that your students are probably already using like EasyBib, which simply create the citations for them. If you really care about citations and research, and you would have typically taken your students to the library, for instance, you can create a screencast. I'm doing some WebExes on screencast, or certainly reach out to me, and you can simply do what my teaching partner Carrie Mitchell does in our online class. We have all of our online students do research, and they have to learn citations, both formal citations and in-text citations. Carrie creates a screencast. She shows them how to go to the library. She shows them how to use EasyBib. She shows them how to use the databases, and that is a great way to help your students learn the tools so they won't make as many mistakes. When it comes to plagiarism, you're probably already doing this. Make sure students know that it's wrong. Help them with plagiarism tutorials that are online that you can find. And my number one suggestion here is simply to move away from the boring essay that they can find online or that would be easy to be able to hire someone to write. Come up with an interesting topic for your paper. Change the genre, change the audience. Feed in something about current events. Make it more about the specific things you're working on in class. Come at it from a unique perspective. Anything you can do to make it more unique and more interesting will make it, one, less likely the student's going to want to plagiarize it. Two, it'll make it harder because it'll be harder to find that in an exam or a paper bank somewhere, and it'll be a lot more fun for you to grade. And so I can't say enough about this. I think this is a critical aspect, and I would love to help you work on this with your essays. All right, I'm 14 minutes in. I'm going to keep going. We talked a little bit about just making it harder for students to cheat on homework, on exams, and on papers. What about some of these other factors? How do we actually promote honesty? If we can move students from an extrinsic motivation to an intrinsic motivation, that goes a long way. I mean, what the research shows is students cheat more in the freshman year of high school than senior year, and they cheat more as freshmen in college than as seniors in college, and they cheat more as seniors in college than they do as grad students. And the reason is probably pretty simple. The farther you go in your career through college, the more you actually care about what you're learning, and the more you realize that cheating is actually cheating yourself, right? I mean, you don't learn when you cheat. And so if you can stoke that intrinsic motivation, Can you actually, talk about things that are relevant to them, their majors, who they are? If you can give students some choices and some autonomy in crafting an assignment or blending it into what they care about, that may help you minimize cheating. In an online class, especially if you want to promote honesty, you got to help a student realize that cheating is not necessary or acceptable, and you have to help students with their self-efficacy. Set realistic standards. This is a presentation that I've given many times. It's true all the time. It is especially true in this last 6 weeks of this crazy semester. Have reasonable standards for what you and your students can accomplish. Allow students to practice, give them feedback so they know what they know and what they don't know, and they can actually assess what they need to keep studying. Make sure you're building in more formative assessments and more touch points than you think you need compared to your face-to-face class. And I'm going to just say, let students know that cheating is lying. If you can evoke that moral sense in your students, I'll talk about that in a minute, that can go a long way to minimizing cheating. How do you help students know what they know? And how do you let them know that they don't need to cheat because you've allowed them to practice the skills that they're going to need? Just a short detour to talk about growth and fixed mindsets. I know you've heard about Dr. Carol Dweck and her stance on fixed versus growth mindsets. In a nutshell, fixed mindsets are when students think that intelligence is innate and there are smart people and dumb people, and some people are good at some things and some people are good at other things, and there's really nothing you can do about it. That's a problem, because if you have a fixed mindset and you think you're not smart, cheating is, you may think that's your only option. What we know is that's not true. You can learn whatever you want, and students can learn whatever they want if they're willing to practice. They may not be the best ever at it right away or even after some practice, but if students realize that if they try hard and practice and get feedback, they can learn, they won't have to resort to cheating. Now, your quote unquote smart student with a fixed mindset is also likely to cheat. This is a bifurcated thing, right? The students that are in the middle, not so much. The students that think they can't ever do it no matter what are likely to cheat as their only out. Your smart students who have a fixed mindset, they're going to cheat because any failure or mistakes, that's something a non-smart person does. And so you have to help your smart students realize that they're allowed to make mistakes too. And mistakes and errors and trying and taking risks is the way to learn. Enough on that. You know your students because you've seen them for the first half of the semester, but you're going to be a little farther away from them because you're not going to be seeing them face to face. I'm going to suggest that you do some screencasts like this. At least they'll know you're still there. Actually seeing you is going to evoke empathy. It's going to evoke those feelings about you as a person, and they're going to remember who you are from the classroom. Students are going to be worried, they're going to be concerned. It is very likely, let's be honest, you are going to be less competent in D2L than you were in the classroom. Be honest with students is my advice. Be humble. Tell them that you're learning and you're trying and we're all in it together. Let them know you care. It's just the facts are, the research says, if a student thinks that you don't care or that you don't know what you're doing, they're more likely to cheat. There's some kind of psychological motivation there. Illustrate your competence by trying to do the best you can, admitting your mistakes when you make them, praising students for pointing out, I don't know, an error or a typo or something. Let students know that you're there with screencasts or images or participation in discussion. And I'm just going to say, my advice is go overboard. Let them know that you really care and you're there for them. And I think that's the best way to deal with this. It's what online students want. This is research I did over the last, I don't know, going back 2 or 3 years now. Students really want you as their online teacher to be a participant facilitator. They want to see you. They want to know that you care about them. These are the sorts of things that our students said when they nominated online colleagues as master teachers. They want a real connection with you. They want you to be fun. They want a real teacher. They want a personalized style. They definitely want an active presence in discussion. They want someone doing screencasts. Be this person for them. I'll just leave it at that. This is something from a blogger named David Summergard. Um, it's my dog in the background barking. So it's the joys of working from home, everybody. Um, let your students know that cheating and plagiarizing is lying, and that when they do it, they're doing something morally wrong. And it may feel weird to call out cheaters as cheaters, and I certainly wouldn't do this publicly, but let them know that you take this seriously. Um, Dan Ariely, he is a behavioral economist, and if you've got time over this quarantine period or lockdown period or whatever we're calling it, find his book online. It's awesome. He talks all about the psychological motivations for cheating as a behavioral economist. He's really interested in what can we do to minimize cheating in general. I'm not sure what's going on out there. My dog is having fun with the UPS driver or something. One of the studies Ariely does is fascinating. He brings test subject into his lab and he just tries different things out on them to see what will motivate them to cheat or what will disincentivize them from cheating. And one of the things he tried is he just asked people when they first walked in to recall the Ten Commandments. He didn't say write them down. He didn't ask them if they were Christians or atheists. He simply said recall the Ten Commandments. And the students that did cheated at a very low level. Sorry, I had to go make sure the UPS driver didn't need me and it was all okay. Anyway, back to my Ten Commandments story. The students that were asked to recall the Ten Commandments almost cheated at a very low level. He said practically no cheating compared to his other, control groups that were cheating a lot. And he says the reason he thinks this is true has nothing to do with the Ten Commandments. It has to do with simply evoking. All right, sorry about that again. It was actually my wife locked out of the house. Um, if you can just remind students that cheating is something that is morally wrong, simply by evoking the idea of right and wrong, that may go farther than anything else. And the reason I bring this up is this is why I think honor pledges work. Simply asking your students to type on their paper or to handwrite and take a picture and send it to you to promise you that they didn't cheat, or ask them to promise you they didn't cheat before they start the exam. That might be the first question on your exam in D2L. Please type in the box that you're promising me that you're not cheating. I have a feeling that this will go farther than almost anything else you can do to help students not cheat. So I'm going to move on and hopefully there will be no more interruptions. Can you lower the stakes of your essays? And I don't mean lower the rigor. I mean, can you move from one big midterm or final that you still have, turn it into multiple quizzes? Can you give a different variety of assessments? If you can lower the stakes, students are going to be really freaked out and worried. It might help them not feel like they need to cheat. And I'll leave that up to you. Work with your instructional coach if you're interested in how could you take maybe what's left of the semester that might have a high stakes performance-based assessment and maybe tweak it for the semester to still get at the same outcomes, to still require the same rigor, but to make the stakes lower on that summative assessment. And again, this is one way of saying moving from a performance-based assessment to a mastery-based. For instance, why not let students do exam corrections? If the idea is for them to learn, why do they have to get it right the first time? If it's an essay, why not let them do rewrites? Because again, isn't the point to help them become better writers? So what if they have to take 2 or 3 tries? I realize you might not have time to grade them all, but as a coach, I'm here to say it is a really useful strategy, and the extra grading I think is worthwhile and doesn't take that long. Quizzing to mastery. I love quizzing to mastery, and now that you're an online teacher, I'm going to suggest that you think about building some quizzes. You may, if you take my advice, take all of those multiple choice questions, those fact questions out of your exam, build them into quizzes, and simply tell your students it is your job to master the content. You must take these quizzes as many times as you need to in order to get 100%. Now you're putting it on them. they need to learn the content, they need to take the quizzes, they use those quizzes as a reading tool to go back and study more, and it's forcing them to practice over and over and to recall over and over. The science of learning really supports that as a way to memorize facts, to learn vocabulary, and get that basic foundational type of knowledge. You can build the feedback right into the quizzes. You can also use the quiz to mastery as a jumping off point for other things in your class. This is your ability, this helps your ability to do formative assessment, to see which questions are students struggling with the most, do mini lectures on those things. So I'm a huge proponent of quizzing to mastery as a study tool for students, but also as a way to really help students learn. And if you do this, it may open up opportunities for you to recast your summative assessments into some other format. I do this in my class. I open it up so when students take a quiz, they see the class statistics. And since I encourage students to quiz to mastery, there's a huge internal incentive, a positive peer pressure incentive for students to work hard at quizzes, to keep taking quizzes until they learn a lot. Again, I've mentioned this before, we can take away some of students' motivations to cheat if we actually focus on formative assessment and feedback, so we build their self-efficacy. It's harder in an online class, right? You're used to looking at your students and watching them and seeing if they're paying attention and looking at their faces to see if they're understanding what's going on. That's going to be more difficult, if not impossible, to do in your online class. However, I do think there are certainly ways to do that using the quiz tool, using the discussion tool, and doing other things that I can help you with, or check the Virtual Instructional Design Center, reach out to your instructional coach. What can you do? You can offer quizzing to mastery. You can do self-assessment. You can focus on mastery as well as performance. You can do classroom assessment techniques and a variety of other things in your online class. When you actually watch students learn and give them feedback on their homework, for instance, you're really valuing the learning process. You're giving yourself something to do as an online teacher, since you won't be lecturing, and so you will have more time to spend giving feedback to students. And this will be experienced by your students as instructor presence. They're going to know you there, and they're going to know you care. I'm not going to talk about this here, but I have pointed out, if you want those chances in your online class to watch students work, you're going to have to build them in. And my suggestion is using the quiz tool or the discussion tool to do that, and I'm happy to talk more about that. The virtuous classroom is probably one that has very little cheating, and I'm just going to say these same things also equal more learning. And so everything you're going to do to minimize cheating and plagiarism will actually help your students learn more, and that's what we want anyway. I'm going to close this out in the next 1 minute so I can keep this shorter than 30 minutes, which is longer than I promised, but shorter than I usually talk. Please reach out to me by email. Call me. Don't call me because I probably won't be able to get my voicemail. Send me an email, or if you can't get me or you want to talk to someone else, talk to your instructional coach at your campus, talk to your lead faculty, talk to your department chair. And we're all in it together, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.